Dark Child 99.
Say my name, say my name.
Hello people! So today's video is going to be a little bit more serious than my other videos because I'm going to be talking about a struggle which I'm sure people have gone through at some point, and it's something I personally struggled with: loneliness. And 3 things I learned to help me whenever I felt like I was surrounded but lonely. Okay, so the first thing I learned is that loneliness can be a choice. Oh, I'm arrested. I understand that everyone's struggle is different and on different levels, but this is just talking about how I was feeling personally and how I got through what I was feeling. Okay, so you know the saying, life is a struggle. I think it's a saying for a reason, because life can be very difficult to navigate. And I feel like when we all get to a certain age, we realize this. And if we don't have someone or something to help us get through it, it can go very wrong. So I found this out when I was in 6th form. It was a period of time where I felt like I was living with a cloud over my head.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
And even just breathing was difficult. It sounds very dramatic, but that's the best way I can express how I was feeling at the time. I remember this one time actually where I was like crying on the floor of my friend's room, which is something I did quite often. And it was like one of those big ugly cries because it had been a particularly cloudy week.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
And I was crying. I was like, oh my gosh, God has left me. I'm so alone. No one's trying to help me. But you know, the funny thing was that like in that room, there were about like, what, 5 people all around me, like trying to like make me feel better. And actually earlier that day, like about 7 of us had packed ourselves into like this little van and gone off to this competition, and all these people had come to support me. But I felt surrounded, but still alone. Back then I didn't see the people around me. I only saw my struggle.
Don't be rude.
And obviously everybody's struggle is different, but everybody's struggle is valid and relevant, because if you're feeling a certain way, you can justify that feeling. But I also feel like something changes when you make a decision to not stay in the struggle. For me, the turning point was when I read this book that made me realize I was allowed to be happy. You see, for a long time, I felt like if I had like a really, really good day, I needed to have like a bad day afterwards. Something bad had to happen, something had to die, because it had to balance, you know? I don't know if anyone else thinks that way, maybe I'm just crazy, but if you do, stop. Like, it's not a good way to think. And it doesn't really make that much sense if you think about it. You see, that summer I had a lot of revelations, the summer of the first year of 6th form. And one of them was that every day is a choice between good and bad. Okay, hear me out. There are voices in my head. There are voices in everyone's heads. I think it's called an inner voice, a conscience. Yeah, there are voices in everyone's heads, both good and bad, good thoughts and bad thoughts. And it takes the same amount of energy or belief, whatever you call it, to expect the worst as it does to believe in the best. Because think about it, they both haven't happened yet. So you just keep thinking, oh, bad things are gonna happen when they haven't happened yet. It always seems easier to pick the bad thoughts and hope for the worst. Not hope for the worst, but expect the worst. Because then when it does happen, you're not disappointed. But you control how you think and how you feel, which is something that took me a very long time to realize. And I still have difficulty with it today, ain't gonna lie. But what if the way you think can affect the outcome? Like, what if you thinking it's gonna be good or bad can actually make it good or bad? There's a lot of psychology here, but I'm not a psychologist, although I would like to think I am. I can just tell you what I found, which is that when I made the decision to start picking the good thoughts on a daily basis and ignoring the bad thoughts, even though they can seem like more likely, my life changed. It became brighter, and I went from feeling surrounded but alone to feeling surrounded when I was alone, because I became enough for myself. Not lonely, just alone. So what if no one understands me? My people are trying very hard to be there for me and to support me in ways they can. So what if it feels like I can't breathe? I'm alive. Alive. That in itself is a really good thing. It also helped to know that I wasn't the only person struggling, because that summer I spoke with my aunt who, like, she has very own her business and everything, and she told me about all the insecurity she had on a daily basis, just like, you know, just living the difficulties and choices she had to make. And it made me feel good, because it's not every day that the good thoughts win. Like, it's always easier said than done, but now they definitely put up more of a fight. The second thing is that you have to determine your value to yourself. Okay, what does this mean? I'm gonna use some words from Mama Gwen. My mom always says, and by always says, I mean she said this to me like 3 times. If someone doesn't know what they are, they will be used how others see fit. Okay, so for example, if a fork wasn't designated as a fork, people could use it to brush their hair or sweep their floors. But we don't. Because we know what a fork's primary purpose is to eat. And we use it that way, and we respect its value at this level. In theory, we could use it however we want, but we don't even question it, because that's the level of value. It's obviously a fork can't set a value for itself. And I'm not trying to say that people should be used or are used, or animals. I'm just trying to express that people will see you how you see yourself. So the value level has to be set. Okay, so how does determining value link to loneliness? Okay, so how does valuing yourself link to loneliness? If you value something, you want the best for it. It's like how I value my family and my friends, so I'm always working to make them happy. For a very long time, I always valued others as above myself. That's why the things they said, the things they did, and even just their presence really mattered to me, was of importance to me. So when I was alone, at times I was essentially of no importance to myself, which is why I could feel sad or lonely. I allowed myself to feel that way, which is something I wouldn't do for my friends or my family. There's something that the Bible says, which is love your neighbor as yourself. I'm sure most people have heard of this, and most people focus on the love your neighbor part, but I like to focus on, hey, yeah, love your neighbors. I love my neighbors. I like to focus on the love yourself part. I like to focus on the love yourself part, because before you can even think of loving someone else, the baby knows the struggle. Okay, so before you can even think of loving someone else, you have to know how to love yourself, because you have to be enough for yourself, so that when other people are not there, you don't feel less important or lonely. Speaking of people, it's obviously easier said than done to completely disregard people's opinions of you and how people think of you. If everyone could do it, we would just do it. But what people don't realize is that people don't always think objectively. We have things like herd mentality and forgetting as evidence. I'm gonna use a story from the Bible as an example. The story of Jesus' crucifixion. For those who don't know, that just means death on the cross. By crucifixion. When he basically died for all our sins. Yeah. At the time of his execution, the ruler at the time, Pontius Pilate, gave the crowd an option, because there was like a large uproar, because it was like he was like, oh my gosh, this guy, I know him, I've heard of him, he's some king of the Jews or something. And he was like, so guys, hey, crowd of people, do you want him, do you want us to let him go, this king of Jews, or do you want us to let this barbarous guy who was a known murderer back into society? And the crowd was like, yeah, release the murderer. They were like, we want that guy back in society. side note, I don't know why. On a side note, I don't get why everyone's always hating on Pontius Pilate. They're like, oh my gosh, that's the guy Jesus died under. But he tried his best. The real problem was the crowd of people that asked him to release a murderer back into society. Someone who had done nothing but heal and feed and inspire people versus a murderer. And they were like, yeah, that one. And this wasn't just one person. It was a whole crowd of people. Jesus was treated as less than a murderer for doing absolutely nothing. This means that people that talk behind my back, hurt me, put me down, people that call me names and say things behind my back, bless their hearts. Perhaps they're not doing it because there's anything wrong with me. Maybe there's something wrong with their judgment. Okay, let me give you an example because I'm not trying to get in the way of anyone's growth. If you did wrong, you did wrong. But, you know how the things people say about you always have a way of getting to you? Like, you always know, you find out, you know? There was this one girl from Sixth Form calling her out, okay? So she said to my friends, which now that I think about was very, very stupid of her to say in front of my close friends, that I think that everything that comes out of my mouth is gold. Like I'm the best at everything. Now, anyone who knows me well will know that I am my biggest critic, and many times I don't see the good things anybody else may see in me, but I still internalized what she said and added that to a list of things I didn't like about myself. Which is why this revelation about how people may value you beneath your value was very important to me. So the crowd picked a murderer over me. That friend thought I was mean enough to use her insecurities against her. That guy cheated on me. What does that say about me as a person if they can do these things to me, if they can think these things about me? And the answer is nothing. It says nothing about you. People don't know your value. They don't understand it. So you have to work to understand it yourself. Another thing from this story is that on the cross, they were the King of Jews. Like on it, the placard thing, like the cross was. Now, king isn't a bad title. Like if someone wrote, God forbid I'm crucified, but if someone wrote the queen of, I don't know, dancers.
What?
Oh my black, I would be thrilled. But they used his identity, which was a good thing, against him. They turned it into a bad thing. So for me, that's like labels, like smart or funny or pretty, like on my head, and people translating it to know-it-all or loud or vain. Why would you do that? It's tempting to see yourself that way. If it seems like the people around you see yourself that way, that's also important. The people around you are also important. You don't need snakes. You don't need snakes. They're gonna call you vain instead of pretty. Anyways, but it's very important to understand that people are not always good judges of character. So in summary, choose the good thoughts because you have a right to be happy. Value yourself first, and then understand that people may not always completely understand that value, your value. These are things that took me a while to learn, but I'm very happy I did, and I hope it helped prove to at least one person that you may not be the monster that friend or those people are trying to claim you are. And you can just be happy regardless of how you or people may see yourself. Thank you for watching and have a happy day.